Hi, so the book I read is called Charlie's Secret by C.L. Heckman. And so to start off, the theories that I thought were applicable to the book were symbolic interaction, which is basically everything is socially constructed, and that relationships with others define meaning in things, whether it be like big or small, and those actions have reactions. So it's more of a micro perspective on that scale. And like stereotypes and assumptions of others shape their behaviors, which in this case are abusive towards others. And that the belief is that someone is entitled to power and control over another person. Conflict theory, again, that is divide and inequality due to like rank or status. In this case, I would say based on age, maybe, because the mom and older brother Charlie are in control and have more power over Sam, and they maintain authority over her due to the repeated cycle of oppression and, in this case, again, abuse. And then intersectionality, problems caused by aspects that might not be so obvious or visible. This you more so learn at the end of the book once Sam gets her mother's diary, and it starts to begin to explain a lot of things and answer questions of why. Because it turns out that her mom had her own adverse childhood experiences. It didn't exactly go into a whole lot of detail, but just the fact that understanding the reasoning and purpose of why everything happened, it's important to see things from others' point of view. So in that case, her mom's point of view, because she went through her own stuff and had her own problems that weren't really talked about, and that affected her, which in turn affected Charlie and Sam. But getting into the book, a brief summary. So the book was about Sam, a young girl. Charlie's her older brother, and he's the favorite, everyone's favorite. He's so good, can't do anything wrong. They were very close growing up. And then when they were kind of young, their mom went to like a mental institution. She was hospitalized, and they didn't really understand why. But after that, they never really got their mom back. She wasn't the same, didn't really show affection and things like that. And she then became a lot more physically and emotionally abusive and took it out on both Charlie and Sam. The book at the beginning, it talked about how she took it out more on Charlie. And then once Charlie got older, he took out his aggression and anger on Sam. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all started, and it just went on and on until they grew up. And yes, so the types of abuse that I could definitely tell were in the book were physical violence. These were beatings, intimidation, coercion, and threats. Emotional and psychological abuse, things like isolation, minimizing and denying, and blaming, gaslighting, etc. And then sexual abuse and assault. There was one instance of that, and that was an attempted rape in a scene where um, Sam was at a party with her brother and her boyfriend, and some guy tried to sexually assault and attack her. And then Charlie came to the rescue and defended her. And then eventually kind of held that above her head a little bit, like, I did this for you. I told you I would die for you, that kind of a thing. And somewhat manipulates her into continuing to protect him, although he is one of the ones that is really destroying her. So the cycle of violence, again, that started with the mom's life, which I didn't learn about till the end of the book, but in chronological order, that's the way it would be. So the mom's life and her experiences that affected her and how she externally expresses feelings, emotions, things like that. And then she took it out on Charlie, and Charlie again had to internalize a lot of that until he couldn't anymore. There was that explosion, and then he started taking it out on Sam. And these cycles of violence, the first one is tension building. So an example of this would be like when Sam was younger and needed something, she really wanted razors to shave her legs because she was being made fun of at school. and she was in middle school, so still kind of young, and her mom really threw a fit and said, I didn't get to until I was this age, you don't get to. So that kind of a thing, just tension building, like she knows she needs something, but she's scared to ask. And it's like walking on eggshells, like the example that we talked about in class, like that kind of a feeling. And then the crisis or acute explosion, that's when the violence occurs. So in this case, it was a lot of physical and emotional, but the main actual hurt and like physical hurt coming from the physical abuse, like punching, beatings, things like that. And that would be from either mom, Charlie, both. No one would really step in. So there was that, again, explosion. And then after that, eventually the honeymoon phase where the relationship is temporarily mended and things feel okay for a little bit, although it's not fixed. Um, and Sam knew, sorry, Sam knows that, she knew that, but she just had to take advantage of it while she could and just, again, be careful until it all repeated again. And for the power and control wheel, the first section, coercion and threats, examples I have, Sam was under Charlie's control, and like he would trick her into doing things for him, helping him, uh, and saying that it would benefit her. And the only way it would is because he wouldn't hurt her as bad because she did this for him. So it was a lot of threats and coercion, like you have to do this for me or else. Intimidation, they mentioned a lot of gestures and looks, especially Charlie doing this, like with the neck, like I will kill you, or balling up his fists, like, and just staring at Sam like she knew it was coming, and destroying her things. Emotional abuse, definitely present, putting her down, just a lot of slander towards her, gaslighting, making her feel guilty for existing, really doing anything. Sam was always in the wrong. Isolation, Charlie and mom were controlling what Sam could and couldn't do, who she could see or who she couldn't, where she could go, everything like that. She would be punished for, again, basic things like asking for necessities just because she was a bother, things like that. Minimizing, denying, blaming her for them abusing her. So it was her fault. She was ungrateful. So she deserves this, this, and this. Although that is never true. The abuser makes that choice to hurt that person, and it's not what love is. Using children, Sam and Charlie were the children, so it's kind of hard. They're often pitted against each other. Like again, Charlie was the favorite, and Sam just had to try. She didn't even try to really compete with Charlie. She knew there was no chance for her. So Charlie was just often, like, I don't know, told by and conditioned by their mom, like, oh, Sam is this, this, this. And then Charlie would take that out on her. Male privilege, Charlie had more obviously physical strength and power. More people tended to believe him. He was the favorite. And the male privilege really came in when he defined their roles. Like he established his power and dominance. And a lot of that had to do with his male authority. And Sam was kind of the servant or just trying to lowly exist. Economic abuse, unfair money distribution. Charlie got more financial help, like with the truck. His parents helped him buy, and mom would barely help Sam when she was a minor and needed like necessities and things like that. How Sam got out, Charlie beat Colleen, his girlfriend, Sam's enemy, and they went to court, and Sam eventually came to the decision to speak out and break the cycle of abuse, which she had been having an internal conflict for a long time. The challenges: she was alone, no family, isolation, and physical abuse for telling, ratting on family. It impacted Sam and her mental health greatly all throughout the book. There was definite lack of love and self-care. She felt that she was the problem because that's all she ever was told. And impact on others. It hurt her relationship with Jake because she couldn't share what was going on. So there was no communication. And then it also impacted Bailey and her family, who eventually took Sam in to help her, especially towards the end when things were getting really, really bad. Um, they were just concerned and cared about her and very scared because they didn't know what to do. And then interaction with law enforcement. When that happened, when Charlie was first accused of domestic violence against his girlfriend at the time, Colleen. It terrified Sam because she knew that it was true. She was there. She felt guilty and sick. She couldn't do anything because she would be hurt no matter what. The law enforcement initially believed Charlie, like he lied flawlessly, no holes in his story. So this really scared Sam. And when Charlie eventually went to jail, uh, that she also talked about how the law enforcement was just very pushy. They didn't seem to care, etc. And takeaways. Wow, this was a lot. It's very, very heartbreaking, but it again is true, and it happens all too often. The cycle of abuse. It just goes from one person to another until it's actually addressed and stopped at the root. And this happened a lot through the end, where both Charlie and Sam went to therapy and talked about a lot of things. And although they were never really able to completely mend their relationship with their mother, they were at least able to talk with each other and forgive and try to move on from what happened, because obviously nothing can be changed except future behaviors. So just acknowledging the problems and finding out the root cause, why, addressing and fixing that, and then just trying to do better from there, with a lot of mental help, counseling, psychological help, etc. So, really, a lot of takeaway that I had from this book personally was just never push someone over the edge because you don't know what they're going through. Like Sam, no one knew this was happening the entire time. She suffered alone by herself, and she almost took her life, like at one point. And again, you just don't know what someone's going through. So just be compassionate and understanding and try your best to see things from other people's point of view, because again, you don't know the full story. So, yep. Thank you.